Okay, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something pretty big, actually.
Mm.
It's President Trump's executive order, and it's all about federal elections.
Yeah, this is a pretty major policy shift.
Yeah, it is. And the main thing people are talking about with this order is this whole proof of citizenship thing for voter registration, which is, a pretty big deal when you think about it.
It is, and the thing is we've got this huge pile of analysis on this thing. It's not just, the order itself, but like people have really gone in on this.
Oh, yeah.
We've got SWOT analysis, looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Right.
And then there's PESTEL, too. So that's the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors.
Wow. So they're really looking at it from all sides.
Oh, yeah. And there's more. There are these really detailed cost-benefit analyses and impact assessments.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we've even got stuff from a mock debate on this thing. And then, you've got your political and strategic analytics, the scenario planning docs, a central node summary, and a full risk assessment.
Wow, that's a lot.
Oh, and we can't forget, we've got Trump's actual remarks from when he signed the thing.
So basically, we've got everything but the kitchen sink here.
Pretty much.
All right, so anyone listening out there, our goal today is to make sense of this mountain of info.
Exactly.
We want to figure out what's really important in this order, what could happen because of it, and understand all the different opinions people have about it.
It's a big puzzle, but I think we can put the pieces together.
I think so too.
Okay.
So let's dive in. What are the really key parts of this executive order that we got to understand first?
All right, so there are a few big things. First off, it requires you to show proof that you're a U.S. citizen to register to vote in federal elections.
Okay, so what does that mean, like in real life?
Well, the sources mention things like a U.S. passport or a driver's license that meets the Real ID standards, those more secure ones.
Right, right.
Those are examples of what they'd probably accept.
Okay, so pretty standard stuff. I guess most people have one or the other.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
The second big thing is this election day deadline for ballots.
Oh, wow. So no more waiting for those mail-in ballots to trickle in.
Nope. If it arrives after Election Day, it doesn't count.
That's a pretty hard line.
It is. Then there's the money issue.
Uh-oh.
That states that don't follow these new rules, they could lose federal funding.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. It's a way for the feds to pressure states to get in line.
Makes sense. Then what?
Well, it also tells certain federal agencies to share their data, specifically the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration.
Oh, wow. So they're really going for it, huh?
Yeah, they're trying to find people who might be registered to vote but shouldn't be, because they're not actually citizens.
So it's all about making sure only citizens are voting.
That's the idea.
Oh, yeah.
And they're also saying there need to be new federal standards for ballots. Specifically, they want voter-verifiable paper trails.
So if there's a recount, they can go back and check.
Exactly. It's about security and making sure audits are possible.
Got it. So what else?
Oh, this one's interesting. This order actually cancels out the one Biden made back in 2021 about voter access.
So a pretty clear swing in the opposite direction.
Definitely. And to make sure states comply, they're telling the Election Assistance Commission, the EAC, to withhold funds from those who don't play ball.
So they're serious about enforcement.
Yeah, and they're even telling the Department of Justice to come down hard on any election crimes.
Wow. No messing around.
Nope. And they're very clear about wanting to reduce the number of ineligible voters. Specifically, they call out illegal immigrants.
That's going to be controversial.
For sure. And there's this new thing, too. They're adding a question about citizenship to the federal voter registration form.
Oh, wow. So that's new.
Yep. And they're really pushing for everyone to follow those national election day rules, making sure things are uniform everywhere.
Right. And last but not least, they want to go after anyone messing with our elections from outside the country.
Yeah, foreign interference is a big concern. So as you can see, this order touches on a lot of different things.
It really does. It's like a complete overhaul of how we do federal elections.
You could say that, okay, so we've talked about what's in the order, but now let's get into the why. Why did they do this?
Right.
Well, a lot of the people who support this order, they say it's all about making elections more secure.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, everyone wants fair elections, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they say that by making people prove they're citizens, it'll reduce the chance of people voting who aren't supposed to.
So less voter fraud, basically.
Yeah, and they think that'll make people trust the results more.
I can see that. Like, if you know everything's on the up and up, you're more likely to accept the outcome, even if you don't like it.
Exactly. It's about confidence in the system.
Okay, what else are they saying?
Well, they also think that having the same rules everywhere will be good.
Like a level playing field.
Exactly. They want consistency and reliability across all the states.
Right now, it's kind of like a patchwork, right? Different rules in different places.
Yeah, exactly. And they also like the idea of using federal resources to double-check all the voter data.
So like a nationwide system to make sure everything's accurate.
Right. They think that'll be much more efficient and effective than having each state do its own thing.
Okay, so more uniformity, more accuracy.
Right. And some people are saying this will force states to upgrade their systems.
Oh, yeah, like get with the times, technology-wise.
Exactly. They think it'll be good for cybersecurity too.
Makes sense. I mean, those voter databases are prime targets for hackers.
Oh, yeah. Big time. And in the end, they just want people to have faith in the system again.
So it's like a reset button on American elections.
Kinda. They want people to believe that the system is fair and that their vote counts.
I mean, that's important in a democracy, right? People got to believe in the process.
Exactly. And they see this as a first step, a way to set things right for the future.
Okay, so that's the pro side of the argument. But like with any big change, there are always people who disagree.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what are the criticisms? What are the potential problems people are pointing out?
Well, one of the big ones is that it could actually make it harder for some people to...
Even if they're eligible.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if you're a citizen, but you don't have a passport or a real ID?
I guess that could happen. It's not like everyone carries those around.
Right. And they're worried that this will hurt certain groups more than others.
Right.
You know, minorities, people with lower income, students, senior citizens, those folks might have a harder time getting the right documents.
So it's like they're trying to fix one problem but might create another one.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of unintended consequences.
Right. Trying to make things more secure but maybe shutting some people out in the process.
Exactly. And then there's the money issue.
Uh-oh, that again.
Yeah, some states are saying this is going to cost them a fortune.
To implement all these changes.
Exactly. They need to upgrade their systems, train people on the new rules, verify all these documents.
It adds up.
Oh, yeah. And if they don't do it, they risk losing even more money from the feds.
Ouch. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place.
Basically. And then you've got the whole legal mess this could create.
Oh, yeah. States' rights and all that.
Exactly. The Constitution says states have the power to run their own elections.
So the feds might be overstepping their boundaries.
That's what some people are saying.
Yeah.
And, you know, the civil rights groups are not going to be happy about this either.
I bet they're gearing up for a fight.
Oh, yeah. You're already talking about lawsuits and legal challenges.
So this could drag on for years.
It could. And then there's the whole question of voter turnout.
If it's harder to vote, will fewer people actually do it?
That's a big concern.
Yeah.
And as we said before, it's those same groups, minorities, lower income folks, who might be most affected.
So it could change the whole political landscape.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about the political fallout this is going to cause.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be divisive.
It already is. People are fired up on both sides.
Some more polarization.
Yeah.
More gridlock.
Most likely. And all these legal challenges, they're going to add to the uncertainty and instability.
So basically, it's a big gamble.
Yeah. There's a lot at stake with this order.
Okay, so let's talk about the costs and benefits for a second. I mean, practically speaking, what are we looking at here?
Right. Well, the cost-benefit analysis lays it out pretty clearly. There are a lot of ways this is going to cost money.
Like we talked about the states having to pay for all the changes?
Exactly. That's a big one.
Yeah.
But there are other costs, too.
Like what?
Well, there's the economic impact on states, especially the ones that are already struggling.
Right. If they lose federal funding, it could really hurt.
Exactly. And then there are the social costs, too.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, what if people get discouraged and stop voting altogether?
That wouldn't be good for democracy.
Not at all. And what if this whole thing just makes people angrier and more divided?
Yeah, that's not going to help anything.
Nope. And then there's the cost of defending this in court.
Oh, yeah, those legal fees can add up.
Big time.
Yeah.
And then you have the whole logistical nightmare of coordinating this between the feds and the states.
And keeping all that data safe.
Yeah, cybersecurity is a huge concern. So yeah, the costs are pretty significant.
So what about the benefits? What are people hoping to gain from all this?
Well, the big one is obviously election security.
Making sure everything is fair and above board.
Exactly. And they're hoping that'll lead to more trust in the system.
Like we talked about before.
Right. And if they can really crack down on voter fraud, that would be a big win.
I mean, even if it's not as widespread as some people claim.
Right. But just the perception of it being a problem can be damaging.
So even if it's just for show, it might be worth it.
Maybe. And this whole thing could set a precedent for future election reforms.
Like a blueprint for how to do things moving forward.
Exactly. And he could also push states to modernize their systems, which could be a good thing in the long run.
especially when it comes to technology and security.
For sure. And for the people who really believe in this order, they're going to feel a lot better knowing that these changes are in place.
Like it's going to restore their faith in the system.
Exactly. So, yeah, there are potential benefits, but it's definitely a mixed bag.
It sounds like it. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit and look at the big picture.
Yeah.
What kind of impact could this have on society, on politics, on the economy, on the legal system?
Okay, well, the impact assessment goes into that.
Sure.
It basically says that socially, this could make things worse.
Like even more division.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It could lead to more distrust and more polarization.
Yeah.
And like we talked about, it could disenfranchise some voters, especially those who already have a hard time making their voices heard.
Right, so not a great outcome there.
Not really. And politically, this could really shake things up.
How so?
Well, it could change who votes and where.
Which could change who wins elections.
Exactly. Especially in those tight races where every vote counts. And it sets a precedent for the feds getting more involved in elections, which could have long-term consequences.
So it's not just about this one order, it's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. And economically, this is going to put a strain on states.
Yeah, we talked about that, the cost of implementation and the potential loss of federal funds.
Right. And that could hurt a lot of people, especially those who rely on government services.
So it's not just about politics, it's about people's lives.
Exactly. And legally, this is a minefield.
Yeah, we talked about the potential constitutional challenges.
Right. This could end up in the Supreme Court.
Which would be a huge deal.
Oh, yeah. And if the order is upheld, it could really change the balance of power between the feds and the states.
So this could have ripple effects for years to come.
Absolutely.
There.
Okay, so let's switch gears for a second and talk about strategy. What are the political and strategic implications of this order?
Well, these analyses suggest that this could change the whole voter landscape.
Like who votes and how they vote.
Exactly. And it's going to be interesting to see how public opinion plays out.
Oh, yeah, the media is going to have a field day with this.
For sure. They're already spinning it in all sorts of directions.
And the way people perceive this order could make or break it.
Absolutely. And you can't ignore the symbolism of rolling back Biden's voter access initiatives.
It's a clear message about where this administration stands. Definitely. And on a practical level, they're going to have to figure out how to share data securely between all these different agencies.
That's no small feat.
Nope. And they need to make sure states have the resources to implement these changes.
And someone's got to keep an eye on things, making sure everyone's following the rules.
Oversight is going to be key. And they can't just ignore the people who are going to be most affected by this.
Right, they need to bring everyone to the table.
Exactly. And they need to be prepared for pushback.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be a lot of that.
For sure. People are already organizing protests and rallies.
So it's going to be a bumpy ride.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look ahead for a second. What are some of the possible scenarios that could play out? Well, they've done some scenario planning, and it looks like there are a few different paths this could take.
Lay mommy.
Okay, so one possibility is that everything goes smoothly. The order gets implemented, everyone follows the rules, and the public is happy.
That's the best case scenario.
It is.
Hmm.
But it might come at a cost.
Like what?
Well, some people might not be able to vote anymore.
Because of the new requirement.
Exactly. So election security might go up, but voter turnout might go down.
That's a tough trade-off.
It is. Then there's the possibility that things get messy.
Like how?
Well, some states might resist the order, they might refuse to implement it, or they might challenge it in court.
So it'd be a patchwork of different rules across the country.
Exactly. And that would just lead to more confusion and more legal battles.
Not to mention more division and anger.
Right. And then there's the scenario where the courts strike down the order.
Saying it's unconstitutional.
Exactly. And that would be a huge victory for states' rights advocates.
But it would also infuriate the people who support the order.
Oh, yeah. It would be seen as a major setback for election integrity.
It's a lose-lose situation either way.
Pretty much. And then there's the possibility that things just get bogged down.
Like in legal challenges and logistical hurdles.
Exactly. It could take years for this to all play out.
And all that uncertainty would be bad for everyone.
For sure. And then, of course, there's always the chance that a future president just undoes everything.
This was all temporary anyway.
It could be, but that would also be controversial.
Yeah, it would just continue the cycle of back and forth.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So, yeah, the future is pretty uncertain.
It sounds like it. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. What did Trump actually say when he signed this thing? What was his reasoning?
Well, according to the transcript, he spent a lot of time talking about how messed up our elections are.
Like he said there was widespread fraud.
Yeah, he used phrases like fake elections and bad elections.
So he was painting a pretty bleak picture.
He was. And he said this order was the solution.
Like it was going to fix everything.
Yeah, he said it was going to straighten out our election process and end all the problems.
So he was making some pretty bold claims.
He was. And he kept talking about how important it is to keep non-citizens from voting.
That was a big theme for him?
It was. And he said this was the most powerful action ever taken to secure elections.
So he was really emphasizing how big a deal this was.
Definitely. And he slammed Biden's executive order, calling it weaponized and corrupt.
So he was really framing this as a battle between good and evil.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He was saying that he was the one trying to save American democracy.
Okay, so a lot of strong rhetoric there.
Mm.
But what about the risks? What did the risk assessments say?
Well, they flagged a whole bunch of potential problems.
Like what?
But first of all, they said there were going to be a lot of lawsuits.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Right. And that could delay everything.
And make it even more expensive.
Exactly. They also said that this could end up disenfranchising a lot of voters.
Which would be a bad look.
Yeah. And they said people might get really angry about it.
Protests and all that.
Exactly. And on a practical level, they said it might be really hard to implement this.
Yeah, it's a complicated system.
It is. And they said there's a risk that all this data sharing could lead to security breaches.
Oh, yeah, that would be a disaster.
It would. And politically, they said this could make things even more divisive.
Which is saying something these days.
Right. And they said it could backfire on the people who are pushing for it.
Like it could hurt them in the next election.
Exactly. And they said this is going to be a big burden on states financially.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Right. And if states can't afford to implement this, they might lose federal funding.
Which would just make things worse.
Exactly. And they said there are a lot of technological challenges, too.
Like making sure the systems can handle all this.
Right. Making sure they're secure.
So, yeah, a lot of potential problems.
For sure. So as we wrap this up, it's clear that this executive order is a huge can of worms.
It really is. It's so complex, and there are so many different angles to consider.
Exactly. And at the heart of it all is this tension between wanting to make elections more secure and making sure everyone has the right to vote.
And it's not an easy balance to strike.
Not at all. So here's a question for everyone listening out there. What do you think is going to be the biggest impact of this order in the long run?
Will it make elections more secure? Will it disenfranchise voters? Will it just make things more divisive?
It's a tough question, but it's one we all need to think about.
Because the future of American democracy might depend on it.
Exactly. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
And we encourage you to keep digging into this topic.
There's a lot more to learn.
And a lot at stake.
Absolutely.